Domain 6, Lesson 2, The Reasons for the Seasons. Right now, Earth is moving, even though you cannot feel it. Earth is always moving in space in two ways. The first way the Earth moves is called rotation. Rotation is the movement of Earth around its axis. This controls the cycle of daytime and nighttime. The Earth takes 24 hours to turn or rotate once on its axis. The Earth rotates in a counterclockwise direction from daytime to nighttime and back to daytime again. During rotation, the part of the Earth that is facing the sun changes. When it is daytime where you are, that means that part of the Earth on which you are standing is facing the sun. Sunlight hits our planet and moves across it from east to west. This is why we see the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. Sunset eventually occurs when certain parts of the Earth turn or rotate away from the sun, and nighttime begins. This cycle continues over and over. The second way the Earth moves is called revolution. Earth revolves or orbits around the sun in an almost circular path. Therefore, as you live on Earth, you are traveling around the sun too. It takes Earth 365 1/4 days, or 1 year, to complete one revolution or orbit. You might be wondering about the fourth of a day. This 1/4 explains why we have a leap year every 4 years. During a leap year, we add one additional day to the calendar to catch it up to the Earth's orbit around the sun. Earth is tilted as it orbits the sun. Tilt or slant your head to one side. The Earth remains at the same angle and points in the same direction throughout its entire orbit. Now let's find out more about how Earth's tilt causes the seasonal cycle. Earth is divided into hemispheres, or halves, just like an orange can be cut in half either through the center from side to side or from top to bottom. Earth can also be divided into two different ways. Our planet is divided in half into the northern and southern hemispheres by an imaginary line on its surface called the equator. The equator is the same distance from the North Pole as it is from the South Pole. The United States, where we live, is located in the northern hemisphere. People can also be divided into two halves called the eastern and western hemisphere. These hemispheres are divided by the prime meridian, an imaginary line used to split the Earth into eastern and western halves. When the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun during Earth's revolution around the sun, it receives more intense light from the sun at a more direct angle. During this time, it is summer in the northern hemisphere. Around June 21st each year, the sun reaches its highest point overhead in the northern hemisphere. This is called the summer solstice and is referred to as the longest day of the year. That means that there is daylight for a longer period of time on that day than in any other day of the year. People in the southern hemisphere are experiencing winter, while people in the northern hemisphere are experiencing summer. On June 21st, in the southern hemisphere, that part of the Earth is tilted away from the sun, with the sun at a low angle in the sky. The sunlight is not as strong or intense, and there is less of it, so that part of the Earth receives less light and less energy than the northern hemisphere. June 21 is the winter solstice, or shortest day of the year, in the southern hemisphere. It is the opposite of the northern hemisphere. As Earth revolves around the sun, the seasons begin to change depending on which hemisphere is tilted most directly toward the sun. This depends on where Earth is on its rotation or orbit around the sun. One revolution takes 1 year, and each hemisphere is tilted directly in the sun for part of the year. 6 months after the longest day in the northern hemisphere, the shortest day occurs. The winter solstice in the northern hemisphere is on December 21. This is, of course, the longest day of the year, or summer solstice, in the southern hemisphere. They are opposites. When the Earth is halfway between the two solstices, both hemispheres receive the same amount of sunlight. This means that the hours of daylight and the hours of darkness are the same in each hemisphere. The days that are equal are called equinoxes. The spring equinox occurs on the beginning of spring on March 21. The autumn equinox occurs at the beginning of autumn on September 21. The cycle of one complete orbit or revolution of the Earth around the sun marks or measures 1 year. Living things respond to the changes in sunlight and warmth throughout the 4 seasons of the year. With increased sunlight and warmth during spring and summer, many living things tend to grow well. Animals are born and plants grow. With decreased sunlight during autumn and winter, some plants are ready to be harvested, whereas others die. Some become dormant or become inactive and stop growing and making new leaves for the winter, and wait for the sunlight to return. You will see that most trees do this in fall and winter. Some animals, to avoid the winter chill, hibernate or migrate. When animals migrate, they move to warmer environments. Not every part of Earth experiences seasons, though. Different areas of the Earth have different types of weather. This is partly because of the shape and tilt of our planet. This means that different parts of Earth receive different amounts of sunlight and warmth. The area around the equator receives the greatest amount or direct intense sunlight, so some of the warmest parts of the Earth are located in that part of the planet. The North and South poles are at opposite ends of our planet, and they receive the least direct sunlight. In fact, although they are so very far apart, they have the same kind of weather as each other. It is always cold in the North and South poles, and both places are usually covered with ice. In the next lesson you will learn more about the cycle involving the 4 seasons, and how each season brings with it ever-changing landscape. Which season is your favorite?